In this video, we're going to quickly recap how to solve when having parallel lines cut by a transversal. So an example of this type of problem would be like the figure that's on the top of this screen. I have two angles that are given, both with an algebraic expression showing what their measures would be, and you would be asked to solve for the value of x. So the first thing you need to do is decide if the shown angles are congruent or supplementary. From there, that's going to tell you how to set up your equation. If they're congruent, that means equal, so you would set the two expressions equal to each other. If they're supplementary, you would add and set them equal to 180 degrees. From there, you would solve for x, showing all of your work, and then if necessary, you would then use that x value to actually find what the angles would be. So we're going to walk through one example next. So here we have a pair of parallel lines cut by a transversal, and we have an algebraic expression and two of those angles. I'm asked to solve for x. So what I like to do first is to color code, and that's just a strategy that helps me quickly see if things are congruent or not. So I start by highlighting a pair of vertical angles. So I'll start by highlighting these two. I know those are equal to each other because they are vertical. And then I also know that the angles corresponding to those two would be equal. So that's here and here. If you notice, that highlights the two expressions that I'm given. So what that tells me is that those two are congruent or equal to each other. Since they are congruent, that means for my equation, I would set them equal to each other. So my equation to solve would be 4x is equal to 2x plus 70. That's only the case when they're either both highlighted or both not highlighted. If you have one of each, that means they're supplementary, and instead you would add those and set them equal to 180. So if this is my equation that I'm solving, I need to get all my x's to one side. So I would subtract a 2x to get 2x equal to 70. From there, I would need to divide by 2 to get x equals 35 degrees. Now, in a lot of cases, you might be finished at that step. Once you have the value of x, you're done. If you look down below, though, this question has some follow-ups of actually finding the degrees of those angles. So here it says EFB. To quickly identify an angle, what I like to do is follow those letters. So I start at E, I make my way to F, and then I go up to B. So that angle would be that 4x angle that I was given at the beginning. So if I was finding the value of angle EFB, that's 4x, and I have that x equals 35. So what I would do here is 4 times 35, and that would give me the value of that angle, which would be 140 degrees. Now here, since they're congruent, I know that GFH should also be 140 degrees, but I'll walk you through how to check that. GFH, again, if I'm following those letters, that would be G to F to H. So that would be this second angle here of 2x plus 70. So I'm going to use my x value that I got, so 2 times 35 plus 70. And that checks out and gives me that 140 degrees that I was looking for. Just to note, if these were going to be supplementary, I would have to do this last step because I know that they're not going to be equal to each other, and instead their total is going to be 180 degrees. Let's just do one more to review. I'm going to start the same way, trying to find which angles are congruent to each other. So I'm going to start by highlighting a pair of vertical angles. So I'd look at these two, and then what corresponds to those are these two over here, which would include this expression that I was given. So here you can see that one is highlighted and one is not. Since they are different in my coding system, that means they are supplementary to each other and not congruent. So since they're supplementary, I know that that means they have a sum of 180 degrees. So what I'm going to do instead of setting them equal to each other is I'm going to add them together. So I would have 5x plus 32 plus 20x plus 48, and together that's equal to 180 degrees. Now that's a pretty lengthy equation, so what I'm going to do to simplify it is combine like terms. So combining my x terms would be 25x, and combining my constants would be 80. So that looks much simpler, much easier to solve. So to solve, I would subtract 80 from both sides. That would leave me with 25x equal to 100. So dividing by 25 gets me a final of x would be 4, or 4 degrees. So from there, again, I'm asked to find the actual angle measures. So DEF, going from D to E to F, would be this 5x plus 32. So I'm really asked to find what 5x plus 32 would be equal to if x equals 4. So I would do 5 times 4 and then plus 32. And that gives me an angle measure of 52 degrees for angle DEF. Then from there, I'm looking for GEF. So from G to E to F would be this 20x plus 48. So they're asking me to find what that would be equal to if x was 4. So this time 20 times 4 plus 48. And that gives me 128 degrees. Now what you should notice is if I do 128 plus my 52, I should get 180. And that's one way to check if you're correct or not.